Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mentor Moments. My name is Brayton Wooters, one of your co-hosts, alongside Dr. Michael Kiener. On Mentor Moments, we take the time to interview counseling professionals and personal mentors. As you know, this season we've been chatting a lot about leadership, technology, career development, and counseling as a profession. In this episode, Dr. Kiener and I chat about how to increase participation, not just at work, but in life. We also reflect on the current season and what is in store for our listeners. Prior to hitting record, Dr. Kiener and I were trying to find a natural way to begin the episode, so coming right up was our best attempt at an authentic sounding intro to the episode. Let us know what you think, and as always, thanks for listening.
Hey, Brayton. So we're about a few weeks into our season 3.
Oh my gosh. Yep, we sure are.
And we thought it was about time to just chat a little bit, right? The two of us, no guests this time.
No guests.
Just share a little bit about what we've been thinking about, reflecting on some of our past guests. Even introduce some new things, like we hope to create a blog, or we haven't created a blog, but just use that more to sort of tie in with some of our episodes. A milestone. You want to know a milestone?
I think I know it.
What's the milestone?
The 1.5?
Yeah, we have 1,500, actually over 1,500 plays now.
Yeah.
And I think last year we finished like 7 or 9 countries. We're in 10 countries now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think people must be using AI to translate us to other languages.
That's gotta be what it is. Or they just we're soothing for them.
So,
it's just
white noise?
ASMR noise.
They use it to go to sleep?
Yeah.
I think that's what my wife does. She puts that on her moments to help her go to
Tell
sleep.
her to fall asleep. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think the first thought that comes into my brain is something that you and I were chatting about just earlier, before we started recording, was just careers, how we enjoy it, why we should enjoy it, and the pieces that make it easier to enjoy. And as we were speaking, it made me think of an episode that we did with Crystal Weaver. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode, please do. But her mentor moment was talking a lot about having a work family. And that was kind of going along the same track of what you were talking about earlier. So if you can give our listeners a little rewind.
Well, for me, as our listeners do know, Mentor Moments, we're part of the Missouri Rehab Association Eastern Chapter. And one of the things that we're always thinking about is membership, member engagement, participation. And I think being a board, we want to increase paid membership, right? So we do all these things that these are the benefits. But to me, I'm wondering now if that's sort of not the best angle, but how do we increase participation? Maybe we shouldn't care so much who's a paid member, but how do we increase participation? So then why would you want to participate? What things make it value? And again, I think one of those things is the social relationships that you connect with being part of the organization, right? Maybe we have similar values, maybe that helps solidify our values, professional, personal, and so we kind of gain a commitment. One way to gain a commitment is by increasing our social relationships. I was talking with some other faculty here at Maryville as well. This was more coming out of the pandemic, and one of the things that their professional organization was talking about, having work friends as a way to sort of combat burnout. And so again, kind of this, well, really, what does having social relationships or this work family do? How does it help, not help? So those, I don't know, those are some things that I've been sort of thinking about. I have a great fear that all my thoughts are not going to make sense for this episode. No. Make your own sense as you will. This is sort of put your own paint by numbers, put your own spin on this.
Right,
so.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a lot of thoughts on my brain, which is your definition of participation will most likely look different than my example of participation. There's this portion of how do we meet everybody's expectations, which is difficult to do in itself. And how do we help people feel included? And you brought up like a commitment to each other, maybe as opposed to a commitment to an organization. And I tend to feel stronger relationships with people that I can look at and talk to as opposed to one giant organization, whether that be MRA, whether that be Youth in Need, whether that be Maryville, for instance.
Well, I would agree with that, right? I mean, the people make our program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, to say, am I connected to the rehabilitation counseling program, or am I connected to the people who are part of, graduate of, current students, right? So I would agree with that. You know, that it's like the sum is greater, the whole is greater than the parts, or something.
Parts or something like that. I don't know. I was very lucky to where I worked both at a school and my office. And if I just worked in my school, it would be a completely different dynamic, I think. Working at an office has changed so much of like my enjoyment of my job, my ability to connect both with my coworkers and also just like my profession as a whole. I feel so much more connected to myself as a therapist, what it means to be a therapist, the life of a therapist, when I'm doing it with somebody next to me and they're like, oh wow, you're experiencing this too? So am I. And I'm like, oh, thank you, I don't feel alone. And so that's one thing that I've noticed just like actually playing out in life. Got the notes out.
Well, yeah, I got the notes out, but that was just for future. But I guess I wanted to agree with you in what you were saying. My first job out of college, my rehab degree, I worked for a for-profit concentric managed care. I worked with people, workers' comp. I was sort of always on the road, even though there was an office. It would be rare that anybody was sort of at the office. So I agree with you. Like I didn't stay there that long because I felt like I wasn't connected to the office or my cohort or my office mates. Like that, to me, I learned early on, I need a social component. I mean, I think we said this coming out of the pandemic, right? We had this massive shift in one direction. And some things are never going to change. Meaning, we even though there was like Zoom and Skype and FaceTime before the pandemic, it was used limitedly. Now, again, that's sort of everywhere. But what's the shift back, right? So you're right. There's lots of people now or companies saying, putting more parameters on who can work from home, or is there a shared workspace now where certain days of the week you are in this workspace and certain days a week I'm in this workspace. To have that dynamic. And I guess like anything, it's a cost benefit. Companies are potentially maybe saving money because they have less space, better parking, less travel. Maybe families are benefiting because maybe there's less childcare because people are working from home. But maybe again, the downside, there's less community. I know again, as a whole, Maryville, let's talk. How are we creating community? And we're not saying you have to come back to work, but how are we doing? How are we making sure we're having our virtual employees involved in the process of things, so they feel part of the community as well? Again, I don't know. Maybe we're counselors, we're social people versus maybe somebody that views work differently or maybe a little bit more.
Well, yeah, because the reason why I was making a facial expression because I was thinking about something that I had heard quite a bit, like either in like movies or like culture or TVs, which is like, I'm at work, I'm not here to make friends. For those individuals that really kind of feel that and take it to heart, I'm wondering like if what we're talking about is just you, like, no, I'm not in the business of wanting to do that.
Well, I think, see, this is why this is so fun to kind of just free flow and chat, right? Like, maybe at different times in their life, they need different things, right? And so maybe at certain times they need a more flexible, and so maybe a work life isn't, or the family fun, the work family isn't as needed as maybe other avenues. My wife will say she will, like, having having friends at work is important to her because that sort of makes the tough thing about any job or the stressful thing a little bit more bearable. But I think my wife is also somebody that does excellent in finding things outside of work that make her equally as happy. Versus, I think I'm a little bit more integrated. My work life is also my social life, where she does a better job of keeping it. I don't know if I lost my train of thought there or not, but
Well, you're bringing up something that I think my dad, I guess growing up, I was always raised and watching my parents in their day-to-day jobs. They always kind of like sent a message that was very much like, do not make friends. These are not your friends, because they like there's a risk. There's an inherent risk in having work friends or having a relationship with your coworkers. If it can go fun, it can go not fun very quickly. And I remember just hearing these like, not horror stories, but like these like cautionary tales from my dad about like the ability for the lines to get blurred.
sure, I hear safe than sorry.
Yes.
Right? Like just
Well, and I think that probably that might have been the culture. And granted, you did say that like, we're counselors, so it probably is dependent on the job that you're in. And I'm wondering if it's a cultural thing, like if it's a generational thing. I don't. You're a little more seasoned than me. So,
I thought we were the same age.
So, like, is that something
Two
that
brothers from the same mother, right? Was it, or two brothers different mother? I don't know that.
Is that something that you've seen though? Like,
Well, I am more seasoned than you, and I think I'm now at an age where maybe I can see generations a little bit. I don't know if I'm answering this question, but I don't know.
well, I guess.
Well, I do wonder, again, we talk about maybe somebody that's closer to your generation being a lot more protective of self, or maybe somebody of my generation and older was, yes, I'll work the extra for, like the greater corporation good, or I'm loyal and that's what you just do. And so I see some of those generational things, like maybe students of a younger generation really taking time and consideration to find the right fit for them, so that whether they're maybe work at 3 or 4 different organizations early in their career to find it, where I think somebody from my and older, you find that first one and you sort of work there as long as you can,
Yeah. Well, I have so many thoughts on what you just said. Just the first thing being that, yes, being of a younger generation, there is a more of an emphasis on like being an individual, much more individualistic. Part of my brain wonders if, like, let's say that I entered the workforce 50 years ago, would having a work family be something that was important to me? I don't know. I don't think so. From what I know and from what I've gathered from other people is that it wasn't an emphasis. That wasn't something that really people talked about. And if you made a friend, sure, cool, but like that's not really something that's like important. And now maybe it is. And what does that mean? Should it be important? Should work be trying to fit that need, or is that, or are we asking too much out of our jobs?
I guess what I would respond to that comment was maybe from a leader or agency perspective, and I guess these are some leadership philosophies, that if a leader invests in their staff, in theory, the staff is going to invest back into the mission, and so I want to invest in my students the same way that then they would invest in this class and in the profession. So I guess I would want them to have those connections or that investment.
I guess the second thing that I'm thinking of as well, having a work family does not equal having commitment to your company.
That's correct.
And I think that I've seen young people make that mistake, that it equals the same. Being young, we're all kind of raised with the opposite of that commitment. Don't be too committed to your company. Make sure you bounce around a lot, X, Y, Z. And I think that we go into that with like, okay, I'm going to be here for like maybe 2 years, and then I'm going to split. So I'm not going to like try to sit around and like try to make commitments because.
Right. What I love about you.
Go ahead.
Right, good. Sock it to me.
Right.
Sock it to me. Multiple times today you have said, before this podcast, sort of something like, what is it about me that makes me feel this way, right? What a great counselor statement. So, in me thinking on the fly, why do I like or feel like I need a work family? I have one brother. We live 800 miles away. So I wonder how much it's more, maybe somebody who has a big extended family may feel less of a need, or there's other sort of, I guess, like familial or cultural factors. it's funny, it's interesting. In other areas of my life, I don't feel like I'm heavily invested, I would like to say, in Maryville, in the wrestling team, a professional organization, MRA. I mean, I also go to church, but it's almost like I don't have any more energy to be super invested. So I don't have like church friends, even though I go. So like I also wonder like why in some areas free flowing am I more maybe then there's only so much time that you have to be a volunteer, right? To be a joiner and to give to other things. So I don't know.
My question then, I guess, is not saying that there's none, but like if there's less like person buy-in, maybe we're getting too deep.
Yeah,
why do you keep showing up? Like you know.
That is an awesome question. We got full circle here. So I also found this theory, and again, it's as good as a theory can get. It is a theory called organizational commitment. And they talk about three components that make you commit to something, right? One is this affective component, and that's where you sort of aligned value-wise or a sense of belonging, loyalty. So again, maybe MRA, I like the values of what MRA holds. There's also this, the second one is a continuance commitment. And to me, that's sort of the cost benefits, right? Like, what would I lose by not continuing? So why have I stayed? There are some lasting friendships that I've made with MRA. Because I'm a faculty member, it's become, I always say, like a secondary alumni association because there's so many students that are also part of MRA, or at least in the MRA world. So again, if I stopped, I would lose that. And then that last piece is called a normative commitment. And that's more maybe something like where you stay committed to something out of a sense of obligation or ethics or morals. And I know I said loyalty already as the affective piece, but to me I put that in there. Like, to me, I'm bought into MRA. Why would I want to start another organization when this one is good or fine? I don't know if we can tie it to Mentor Moments. It's like, we've done 3 seasons. Why would we stop now? Like, we're committed to it. And to me, that's maybe the final point is what I still haven't found is where's the tipping point? What keeps you staying? Like why have I been a part of it? You know, again, what made me where maybe I wasn't committed to now I am committed. But you were taking notes there, so I'm dying to see what you're.
Well, I the first one that you brought up, which is like that effective, like where our values are lining up, and we're really lucky where we're working at institutions that are very value based. I mean, universities are kind of like, that's kind of their whole shtick very much, is I will say, is very value based, and so are nonprofits, right? Because I work for Youth in Need, and it's ingrained in my brain the values and stuff, and so I'm thinking about those individuals that maybe where the values are more difficult to find. I think about my first job I ever had, and that was as a lifeguard, and I'm like, oh wow, what are the values of a pool?
Saving lives.
Okay, so
humanity.
Right, and so maybe another like another job that I could have had, like working at our Taco Bell. Right, like how are my values mixing with Taco Bell's values?
Well, again, maybe we think developmentally. Maybe we weren't in a place to recognize that. Because I went to an all-boy high school, and my first job was retail. And for me, the reason why I loved it is because it gave me an opportunity to interact with the opposite sex on a safe level, versus.
Right.
I wasn't trying to date people or not date people, but I could talk to them human because I didn't have that through our freshman to senior year because it was an all-boys school. Like, I didn't know how to interact as a friend with it, And so to me, like, when I went to work there, it was like...
Sure.
So
maybe you make the value.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't know to fit in these three. Make the value of. I appreciate what it's giving. Maybe that's the continuance. Like I'm staying so I don't lose this opportunity to interact with new people.
Yeah, and this is something that you and I were chatting about, and I kind of want to return to it because I don't know if I know fully where it would go. Right, about money. And you mentioned that money might go into that piece of like, well, what will I lose if I leave? And then I also think of like that 16-year-old at a Taco Bell, 16-year-old me at the pool, and maybe the value I'm looking for is money.
Yeah.
Right, and what that money will give me is the value.
Yeah. Like it's giving you a fun summer, right? You have money to go to the movies, or to go play putt-putt, or to buy the video game, or to tractor races.
Yeah. And I even think about tractor races. I almost let that slide too. Well, and I even think about like the hours. Like even hours can go into that, because my pool's hours were meant to be like a summer thing. If you want your evenings, you can go to your evenings. If you want your mornings, you can go to your mornings. And like have something as small, I'm putting in quotes, small, as like, oh, your hourly schedule can fit into that, like the values piece. Like if you value time with your family, or if you value, these other pieces.
Like even thinking back to that first job at Champion Factory Outlet, I'm still friends with a handful of people of there. So there is that social, maybe that, we talk about used career theory, right? There's 6 personality traits that align with 6 work traits, and when they match, we have this true reasoning or whatever, the creating factor. But so maybe that social piece that, and I guess even say that there are sort of people I'm still friends with that are older than me, and then also ones that were at same age as me. So
I don't think it would be an episode of Mentor Moments unless we give a mentor moment, right?
Yeah. And you got it. You got this one.
I think I do. I think right. So if there's like a take-home message from this episode is to kind of, first of all, look at what you're valuing out of your job. Get out a piece of paper and write down like what you're getting out of it. And if it's kind of looking like a short list, what are those effective normative values that we're looking for in a position? And
if I can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's simple, but participate.
Yeah.
This is my mom. Like I learned, many things from my mother and father, but when I was giving my mom's eulogy, I realized my mom was a joiner. She organized every class reunion for her high school and college, and she was part of a skating association for kids with disabilities, and she was all, she was my den mom. So, participate. First of all, participate in life, whether, again, that's part of, personal hobbies, vocational hobbies, whatever. Participate in that participation, again, going back to these values, we'd like to help us better align your values, right? There's so much literature that says when we're more clear with who we are, our values, our identity, we can be more successful, right? That we can have this growth mindset or flourish. So participate.
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Mentor Moments. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere that you're listening to this podcast. Be sure to follow us at Mentor Moments on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And we will see you on the next episode of Mentor Moments.
Are you ready for a career that makes a difference in your community? Consider becoming a counselor with Missouri Vocational Rehabilitation.
Vocational Rehabilitation Counselor helps people who have disabilities find a career path that helps to use their strengths. When people have the supports that they need, it makes anything possible.
I am proud that I'm able to help people change their life and reach for their dream goals.
Discover the change you can make. Visit mvr.mo.gov to get started.